I'd like to call this work session. Was someone saying something?
No, proceed.
Okay, work session number 4. To order, it is now 8:02 p.m. If you would, City Clerk, confirm that we have a quorum with us.
Yes, Mayor, you do have a quorum for this evening.
So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to the City Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and residents out in Bowie TV land. This is a budget session number 4. We're going to discuss the City Manager's office, the Police Department, the Finance Department, and non-departmental expenditures and or revenues and debts. And we'll start off with the City Manager's office on page 54 of the proposed budget. Just so everybody understands, the reason I'm reading the description is not necessarily for us here, but for the people who are out there who may not know specifically what a division or a department does, and we want to, educate them as best we can. The first one is the City Council's budget, and the City Council is the governing body of the city, elected by and responsible to the voters for the operation of the city. The City Council is responsible for municipal policies. The Council appoints the City Manager, the City Attorney, Board of Supervisors of Elections, all standing advisory committees, special task force groups, and study committees. The objective that the Council had for FY 2021 was to conduct a strategic planning retreat to develop mission, vision, strategic objectives of the Council. That did not occur, and most likely as a result of COVID-19. The objectives that are currently there for FY22, this is what we project. You all have an absolute right to change them. Are engaged services of a professional contractor to begin review and update of the city codes by June 30th of 2022. And in conjunction with the City Manager's office, conduct and update the city's 2016 strategic plan in the first half of the fiscal year. There are no significant budget changes associated with this budget. The FTEs is 8 persons, and right now we're carrying the mayor, 6 council members, and a public health officer when one is assigned. And that recruitment is still ongoing, and a candidate is being reviewed by HR. Therefore, the largest expense is salaries and wages, $124,200 for salary and wages, $9,900 for fringe benefits. Contractual services on page 55 include $130,000 set aside for lobbyists to assist the city's legislative issues and other consultant areas, services, and municipal sponsorships. Travel and training budget is $20,000, and the other charges are significant at $115,800. Include our Maryland Municipal League membership, Council of Governments membership, and Regional Environmental Fund, National League of Cities, and Prince George's County Municipal Association, and the Bowie Chamber of Commerce. That completes my quick review of those 2 pages in the budget. Does the council have any questions or comments at this time?
Yes, Mr. City Manager, quick question for you. The code code review that you're speaking of here in the second objective, this is in addition to, I'm assuming this is for the entirety of the code, not just the housing related code that I'd seen we're working on elsewhere?
Correct. This is what would be called the recodification.
Okay.
A look at all of our codes to bring them up to date. We did one in Georgia. It's a very extensive process.
Yeah. How long do you think it'll take once we have a vendor on?
6 months. 3, 4 months, depends on how fast you all work, you know, because by that I mean, you know, there are attorneys that only do this, and they would have to sit down and go through page by page with you all, and that, I've seen that take in other cities 3, 4 months, but it could go faster, depends on how hard you all work.
Very good, thank you.
Well, if there are no
Thanks,
other
sir.
comments, I'll proceed to the city manager's budget. Just for general reference and information, the city manager's budget has a total of proposed budget of $7,037,800 in total. In this division is $1,394,000 proposed. But I'll read a description. The city manager, whoever that is the chief administrating officer, as mandated by the charter and reinforced by city codes that we mentioned before, and for the city. He or she, in this case, supervises all staff and is responsible for the effective management of all financial and administrative actions of the city. The city manager is appointed and serves at the pleasure of the city council. He is responsible for implementing all policy matters established by the city council and for the enforcement of all city ordinances. The city manager keeps the council informed through a variety of reporting procedures that assist the council in its policy-making role. One other thing is just for the information of the residents. The city manager is required to manage the city lawfully and ethically, and has to be responsive to, when he is responding to all directives and directives by the council of the codes. Our objective for fiscal year 2021 was to plan and conduct a staff retreat in the first half of the year. We postponed this to next fiscal year because of COVID-19 and the restrictions that existed. In objectives for 2022, we're going to try the staff retreat again, and this time we're hopefully as things get better and people are vaccinated and the restrictions are lifted, we'll be able to do it. With the city council, we want to conduct and update the city's 2016 strategic plan, and that's a joint effort. We see that. Conduct a citywide review of the city of Bowie's policies and practices to ensure ongoing best practices in non-discrimination, and we intend to do that by October the 1st, 2021. So there are no significant changes in the city manager's office's budget. There are 7 persons in the city manager's office, full-time employees. That's the city manager, assistant city manager, director of grants, grants manager, grants writer, grants intern, and the executive office manager, otherwise maybe called the city manager, and assistant manager secretary, and a part-time risk manager. The salary and wages for this part of our office is $830,000, $265,000 in fringe benefits. Professional services are $113,900, which is consultant that assists the city in managing electricity, gas contracts, and purchasing, a consultant that conducts fair housing training associated with the city's community development block grants. And also there is a $164,200 located down at the bottom of 57, which is the community development block grants program to provide financial assistance to home repairs and to income qualified seniors, which is an outstanding program that helps people out. That concludes a overview of the city manager's office in particular. Happy to answer any questions or listen to any comments about this budget.
Any questions, council?
No, Mr. Mayor, none for me.
If not, I'll proceed, sir. The next on page 58 would be the human resources division of the city manager's office. And the HR, the Human Resources Office, provides service support and staff solutions to city operations, taking a leading role in vital areas such as talent acquisition, employee labor relations, benefits administration, performance management and compensation analysis, and is the primary objective of this office to ensure that the city maintains the most talented, highly engaged, and well-equipped staff as possible. As you all know, there is a friendly competition between us and Annapolis, Greenbelt, and maybe even Hyattsville for qualified and talented people. And so Mr. Haley and his team helps us, keep the best of the best. The objectives for 2021 were to ensure that all preparations are complete for the successful migration of electronic format to the 2021 open enrollment process by 30 September 2020. There were some technical issues associated with that, and the project was deferred to this year, but we are prepared after working those issues out with IT to make that transition in the open enrollment that's forthcoming. B would be to hire a consultant firm to conduct comprehensive classification and compensation study for all city positions. The study was scheduled to be completed by the 30th of April. We have extended, given the consultant, until the 31st of May to complete it in full. C there is to complete 8 employee wellness activities, including lunch, learning seminars, health fair, and employee challenges. On schedule to complete this goal by a deadline, 4 events have been held to this point, including our annual employee flu shot clinic, health and wellness, and financial planning webinars. So we're on course there. As you can see from the workload indicators, the pandemic did not have any effect on the activities and or workload of the HR department, because we kept going and our people kept going, so HR issues were constant. In 2022, we're going to migrate the automated enrollment process that I mentioned earlier, establish and implement a formal citywide teleworking policy. And this should be easy for us because, as a matter of fact, before the shutdown that occurred on the 15th of May of last year, I believe it was, we had nobody teleworking here at the city of Bowie. Now, 80% of the white-collar workers are teleworking, and we have a capacity to handle all of them. Now, and so kudos to HR and our IT department for making an immediate transition. We reinforced the networks, reinforced the help to our employees, because we had people that never had laptops, and were taking them home and having to work through issues, and we didn't lose any of our efficiency. One could argue that we got even more efficient. Established an employee training and development tracking system by June 30, 2022. Conduct 8 virtual employee wellness activities. Some activities may be in person depending on the circumstances, and we're going to intend to do that by June 30, 2022. There are 6 persons 6 full-time employees in HR, the HR director, resource administrator, resource journalist, and executive office associate. We have a salary budget of $44,600, French $137,300, and professional services $47,000 for the and also recruitment where we $51,700. We have to often pay for our advertisements associated with recruitments, and otherwise that's the end of the HR budget. Of course, the HR director and I are ready to take any questions if anybody has any.
Yes, Mr. City Manager.
City Manager. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, council member.
That's quite all right.
Okay, if you don't mind, let me just ask this quick question. As the competition we've seen across all spectrums, i.e. of all types of employment, there's been a real run on quality candidates and personnel. And in some instances, organizations are looking at pushing up, be it recognition bonuses when they typically would do them later in the year, or even advancing on the increases and all. Do you see any need for us at this time to do anything along those lines? Do we see where our personnel are being recruited strongly for other cities and municipalities, or are we holding pretty good at this point?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think I could say that we're holding our own. We have a, as you know, as it currently relates to pay and wages, we are competitive, and the classification study is going to tell us what we need to do to get better at that. We have our benefits packets are certainly competitive and better than most. That's really important, as you know, as part of the total compensation. And we do have an incentive program for, especially for exceptional employees who perform above and beyond. We have a spot award program, which is very effective. Also, Bowie's been consistent with cost of living increases, and we are able to reward high performers with the merit pay. Now, you know, one of the things I did in the last 4 years is I worked really hard to make sure that merit increases were merit increases, and nobody had an absolute right to one. You had to perform to get one. And so I think that's really helped us keep quality employees. But we're going to take a look at this classification study and see what we need to do to stay competitive in the future with salary and fringe benefits. But right now we're holding our own. Fortunately, some of our competitors are afraid and are cutting their COLAs and cutting their merits. I think that's a detrimental thing. It certainly isn't needed financially, and I think it's going to help us next year. And it's something we are certainly people are the most important assets that we have here, and so I think we're competitive right now, and we're taking appropriate steps with this classification study to see what we need to do to stay that way. So,
thank you very much, Councilman DeFore.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, can you speak to what will be covered as part of the open enrollment project?
Right, Stephen, could you chime in on that one, please?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. What that is about is our benefits broker. It's a firm called NFP.
Tell everybody who you are, Stephen.
I'm sorry, I'm Stephen Haley. I'm the Human Resources Director. And so what the open enrollment project is that currently during our open enrollment process, which takes place in the fall of each year, our enrollment calendar runs from January 1 to December 31st. We have typically been doing it in sort of a, if you will, an old-fashioned way, in that we do all of our enrollments by paper. Employees fill out their benefit selection sheets manually. We collect them and process them as they need to be. What this system will do, there is a software system called Benefits Navigator, which is a proprietary system that has been developed and used by our benefits broker, whereas we'll be able to automate those processes. So people will be able to make their benefit selections online as opposed to us going through the manual process. So Obviously, we don't know where we'll be in terms of the pandemic once October comes around, but certainly if we're still in the throes of that, this will be a much more efficient system. And even beyond that, again, it'll just be helpful in that employees won't necessarily have to fill out the paperwork, bring them to HR, and go through that manual process. Instead, they'll be able to do it online.
Thank you. A quick question as a follow-up to that. Would this cover tax withholdings, direct deposit changes, retirement contributions, things like that? Or is it just specific to other benefits or benefits?
This is specific to health benefits.
Health benefits only. What can we do in the other areas? Just, for my day job, if you will, we have a pretty robust system that allows us to do changes, pay period to pay period, whether it's withholding amounts or changing of direct deposit bank accounts and things along those lines. It really improved the throughput, obviously, and the alacrity with which our agency could respond to our employees' needs, but it also reduced the amount of time and effort was needed by staff. Is there anything that we can do for the other areas?
Sure. Currently, we actually do have an employee self-service program, so employees can log in, and you can do basic things like make adjustments to your tax withholdings, change of address, basic things like that. Also, we are looking at to move to a new HR management platform at some point, hopefully, that will make that process even more efficient. So we do actually have a system in place for that.
Yeah, I just went through the process of changing my direct deposit, which is not a lot of money, but it's enough to make sure that it gets deposited correctly, and it seemed to be a pretty manual process. So I'm glad to hear that we at least have the opportunity for some additional improvements in that area. What solution are you looking for HR management?
The solution that we're looking for is a platform called Bamboo HR, which is a pretty widely used at this point cloud-based solution, which we've vetted and are pretty comfortable with. So that's the direction we'd like to head.
All right. Thank you.
Certainly.
Are there any other questions to Mr. Haley? If not, sir, I'll proceed to the next section, which would be our election sections of the city manager's office. This activity provides administrative, secretarial, and clerical services for city elections, voter registration, records keeping, and furnishes voting and registration information to Bowie residents and other government bodies and agencies. The objectives of this activity are to encourage all eligible residents of the city of Bowie to register and vote in all city elections, provide adequate information to residents, and continually improve and update the city's voting regulations and records. In 2021, the objective A was to work with the election task force in updating the city's election laws. This goal has not been accomplished, and there's still a need to appoint that task force and move forward. The B would be continuing to work with the County Board of Elections to update the city's list as homes are built and properties are annexed into the city. This is ongoing work with the county, and the city clerk is maintaining that. For 2022, the objective that's projected, of course you all have an absolute right to adjust this, is work with the county election on updating voter registration and city street lists as homes are built and properties are annexed into the city. There are no significant budget changes in this particular budget, and it's a really small budget since this is not an election year, only $500. Any questions regarding elections?
Yes, Mr. City Manager. In the most recent election, we had significant voter turnout. We had the gymnasium that was used as a voting facility. Can we work to or commit to working with the county to find or to help them find some alternatives to A, either replace the gym as a voting place, or B, to supplement so that it's not as crowded at the gym. The lines were pretty outrageous. I know the burden on the facility and the staff there was pretty significant. And, you know, we didn't have that facility for its intended use during that period.
Oh, yes, sir, I'll be happy to. Initially, I think it was 2 years ago, we had an issue, when it was proposed to us, the previous council told the requester no, because it does disrupt the life of the gymnasium and the senior center with the parking. And so I'll talk to them and see what they can do, you know, to, if nothing else, mitigate the circumstances.
Thank you, sir.
There's a significant expense to us related to this, police and other things too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to, as a comment though, to that is just trying to make sure that we provide our citizens with ample opportunity to vote and make it as convenient as possible for them. So I think it is good that we start looking ahead, and as you say, even if need be, augment, because we do want to make sure we support all of our elections to make sure that they're as convenient as possible for our residents.
All right then. The next section would be legal services. This office provides legal services and advice to the city council and the staff. The city attorney attends council meetings, represents the city in legal proceedings, both before the courts and administrative agencies, reviews contracts, leases, covenants, and prepares ordinances and resolutions. The office also provides advice to the city and state legislation where required. The city retains several law firms with differing specialities to handle such matters as bond issues and IRS tax issues. Special legal counsel is also retained to support the Ethics Commission, the Board of Personnel Appeals, telecommunication legislation, and the cable franchise renewal process. The city also is represented without cost beyond the payment of premiums by attorneys appointed by the local government insurance trust, legit, to represent the city in connection with defense of certain civil actions. There is no significant change to the budget here. We have appropriated, we proposed $203,300, and we are confident that this will cover all of our legal expenses in compared to the years past. Any questions? If there are no questions, we'll proceed to the communications division of the city manager's office. This division is responsible for providing residents with current information on city events, services, and policies through monthly newsletter, press releases, city's website, social media, and cable television. It also broadcasts city council meetings and special events. For those who aren't aware of it, there is a city communications plan that's available for reference. That's on our website that people can see, and you will see that we have certainly studied comprehensively the communications issue in Bowie, and we strive to get better and better at it each year. The objectives and results of fiscal year 2021: to expand the messaging across all communication channels to educate about city services. The division increased the frequency and reach of communications to include daily email updates to residents, frequent use of social media, more videos, regular use of neighborhood applications, Nextdoor. These methods and other targeted efforts were key to increasing the census response rate to 84.4%, which was 4% increase over 2010. Also, with COVID-19, the director and her staff did an outstanding job of communicating the details of COVID-19 and its effect on the city of Bowie, and keeping people informed. B, explore new opportunities for residents to engage their government. Virtual meeting, town halls, workshops, and other events have provided new ways for residents to engage, and we conducted numerous of those types of events. C will be to continue to expand how videos are integrated into our outreach efforts. Staff has relied heavily on videos as a way of educating, engaging, and informing residents during the pandemic, and have increased engagement on social media and traffic on the city's website. We do have, I did spend some time in public affairs and Army, and part of it was in broadcasting, and I can tell you that we have an outstanding video production operation that we use to get the word out, and it's second to none. D, create a strategic digital communications plan. It should address improving communications in digital space, expanding the use of Facebook and Twitter, using digital promotions, and search engine optimization. The plan completed on March 21st, that's not correct. It will be completed by 30 June 2021. Work with the consultant to develop unifying and a unified brand for the city. Consultant hired in spring of 2021, and rollout for the branding will be done in 2022. And we that was a mistake. The RFP for the consultant will be going out within the next 2 weeks for the branding, and we expect to roll it out in 2022. My mistake. Objective for fiscal year 2022. When the work of branding the consultant is completed, and possibly around the end of the year, we intend to develop a new style guide, train staff in the use of new brand, and launch a new brand in publications, on social media, and at city events by June of 2022. Work with the Information Technical Department to refresh website content and appearance of the city website to be consistent with the new brand. Promote the Alert Bowie as an important means of staying informed about city affairs, and work to increase registration by 5% by June of next year. Upgrade the audiovisual and broadcast equipment in the city chambers to current industry standards, and quality broadcast, and our ability to conduct virtual or hybrid in-person virtual meetings with City Council. The equipment here is reaching the end of life. We need to update it. Significant budget changes are, we are adding a full-time communications analyst at grade X114 at a cost of $79,143. This person will be working, among other things, on the digital strategy that was aforementioned, branding, and the website redesign, and social media, just to name a few things. But we're going to increase our ability to communicate here, for sure. This division has 6.2 employees. We have the communications director, the AV specialist, communication analyst 1, analyst 2, which is what we're going to hire, broadcast specialist 1 person, and 6/10 of a studio technical specialist, and a part-time communication analyst at 6/10 of a FTE. People-heavy organization, where salaries and wages are $494, $700, $650, $300 on fringe benefits, and we spend a significant amount of money on advertising and publicizing events, $39,200. Printing is a cost at $33,000, and material supplies for the division and committee support at $37,000. And there are municipal grant awards of $35,000 also. Any questions about this particular divisions?
Yes, Mr. City Manager, a couple of quick questions. The first is on the brand effort that's going to be going on. Will that be done in concert with a switch over to a .gov domain name?
Una, please.
Good evening, this is Una Cooper, Communications Director for the city. Yes, it will, and that's part of the reason why we've upped the advertising budget and some of the material supplies and minor equipment to allow us to, we're gonna have to reproduce everything that has our city URL on it in the future when it's changed.
And what platform are we using for the web front end?
If the vendor is called Civic Plus, they
yes,
specialize in municipal websites.
And we're going to maintain that?
Yes, that's the plan. We're under a contract with them, and so we are due for, actually, we're a little overdue for a refresh as part of our contract. And we delayed it so that it would be timed with the rebranding.
Thank you. And on a different subject, first of all, I want to say thank you for all the excellent communication efforts that you've engaged in, particularly in our COVID times, if you will. I know a lot of our citizens have relied heavily on your communications and your organization's efforts. So thank you very much. You've done a great job, and I do greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. I have a great team.
I have a couple questions, and I don't expect you to have answers right off the top of your head, but perhaps you could share with me some of the performance indicators for our communications, some open rates and sign-up counts and some things along those lines for the various channels that we have, everything from our text message services as well as to email, and I know we have some significant followings on social media as well. Do you have a collection of metrics that you could share with me on that?
I do. I can produce it in a report if you'd like. Facebook is our most effective social media channel. We have over 6,000 followers on there, followed by Twitter. I think that's in the 2,500 range. And then Instagram is growing, and that's more used by younger people. And so that's the one that we think is really important for the future and engaging new residents. We have about 8,000 subscribers on Alert Bowie right now, and we also use Nextdoor. We're using it for the daily COVID updates now, and we use it occasionally for other things. And we reach about 13,000 subscribers on that. But I can provide you a more detailed report if you're interested in that.
Outstanding. Thank you kindly.
Una, if I may ask you along those same lines, with some of those platforms like Nextdoor and others, does our communications department kind of monitor those to see what's going on in the community and kind of what the chat is that's going on? Is someone monitoring that to see what's going on kind of real time?
Yes, I wouldn't say we're doing it 24 hours, but we're on it constantly. And the way Nextdoor works, you're on there as an agency,
Right.
and then you're also an individual if you're a member of the community. So we're
Right.
doing both. Different departments know that when I see something, a discussion going on that's relevant to their department, they will get a screenshot of that chat or report of that conversation that's going on social media.
Okay, thank you. That's great. That way, we know that a lot of real-time things happen across those platforms, particularly that one, and it's great to know that you're on top of that. Hey, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, we have an archiving solution, a software solution. So we are actually archiving everything. We can't, it doesn't work for Nextdoor, but for the other social media platforms, we're archiving in real time what the conversations are on our platforms.
Excellent. Hey, as the councilman said, and thank you for all your hard work and for the staff in your department doing a great job.
Thank you.
All right then, if there aren't any other questions for the Director of Communications, we'll move to page 66, which is business operations. Business operations is a relatively new division in government, in our government. This was created in 2017 after I got here to help, among other things, manage the concerns and relationships between agencies and our residents. The Business Operations Division handles critical and high-profile administrative management duties, including negotiating and monitoring the city's cable franchise agreement, telecommunications agreements, and annexation agreements. The Business Operations Division also is responsible for overseeing the city's utilities and energy efficiency projects, as well as negotiating and monitoring procurement contracts with various organizations. The division serves as a liaison to various federal, state, and county governmental agencies and departments, as well as to Maryland utility companies. The division manages various unique and sensitive issues as directed by the city manager. In addition, this division provides central support to all other city offices in the area of office supplies, equipment maintenance, printing, graphics, as well as postage and mailings. The persons that provide customer service to people who walk into the city hall are also under the control and supervision of this division. The objectives that were assigned to this division in 2021 were to work in coordination with IT and the INET Coordinating Committee to continue the process to upgrade and expand the INET infrastructure. In FY 2021, the plan was to enhance the use of technology to improve performance, increase network connectivities, provide better customer service, and improve delivery of core services on an ongoing basis. Finalizing the results were the finalizing of the INET core hardware equipment replacement was by December 2020. We completed the replacement of the INET core equipment hardware in Bowie, Old Town. Is that correct, OTN? Right. Yes, and in the November of 2020. Completing the redundant fiber project for the city facilities by September 2021. We contracted with an engineer to design an extension of the city's fiber network, approximately 8 miles from City Hall to 7 city facilities. This project will be completed in 5 phases. Design phase 1 and through 5 are projected to be completed by midsummer. Spring of 21 is an error. B, the continuing Comcast and Verizon cable franchise agreement negotiations. As a former assistant city manager, I got to negotiate contracts, but this process is the longest I've ever seen. So we are continuing to be represented in the cohorts regarding both Comcast and Verizon, and we are cooperating with the intent to come up with an agreement, but we don't control the cable parties. Number C there is to use smart energy to reduce the consumption of energy in city facilities. And currently the staff is working with the energy efficiency strategy, and will be completed by the summer of 2021. And we are collaborating with the newly formed staff sustainability team and energy efficiency project subcommittee, and which is called EEPS. EEPS will be tasked with reviewing the energy efficiency projects to be budgeted in the energy efficiency capital improvement projects. And so also they were tasked to work with the community services to identify priority engineering efficiency projects, such as using metrics acquired and analyzing from the Energy Star portfolio management system. Business operations met with the community services and public works to discuss identifying the prioritizing of energy efficiency programs. Business op will assume the control of the energy efficiency programs and will work in collaboration with EEPS. Working on the staff's sustainability team to continue to review, recommend, and educate sustainable practices such as green fleet policies, green purchasing, EV infrastructure deployment, and energy efficiency technologies. The business operations continue to work with the staff sustainability team, and that team has been reviewing and drafting policies in the areas of green fleet, green procurement, electronic vehicles, and public-private infrastructure. Upon completion, the policy recommendations will be made to the city manager and, of course, forwarded on to you all. As you can see, the COVID-19 experience did not slow down this particular operation, because when looking at the performance indicators, for FY 2022, this organization will coordinate with IT department and CTC, and will continue the process of upgrading and expanding city fiber optics redundancy network infrastructure. In FY 22, they plan to continue to enhance the use of technology to improve performance, increase network connectivity, provide better customer service, and improve delivery of core services on an ongoing basis. And also, one bullet there, continue to expand the redundant fiber optic network infrastructure to remaining city facilities. Number 2 there is to continue the Comcast and Verizon cable franchise negotiations, even though it's been going on for 5 years or more. We are operating on the agreements that were in existence when the old agreement expired 4 years ago. But the good part is our residents are still getting the cable, everybody's happy, and we're working through this. The third one is continue with the smart energy projects to reduce consumption of energy in the city facilities. And there are two sub-objectives. Continue to work with the city's energy efficiency strategy and collaborating with staff, sustainability team, and also working with staff's sustainability team to continue to review and recommend and educate on sustainable practices such as the green fleet, green purchasing, EV infrastructure, and deployment. Now, I'll let Maddie talk a little bit about what we've done in the area of electronic infrastructure and electrical vehicles.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Maddie Bezert. I'm the Business Operations Manager. We've worked with BG&E, and we have now 2 locations, both at Kent Hill Center and at City Hall, which we now have public EV charging stations. They haven't been fully deployed yet. There is a backup in some of the infrastructure that still needs to be put in, but we hope to have them ready by probably within a month. And as I don't know if any of you've noticed, in the back of City Hall, we now have 2 private EV charging stations, and we've increased our EV green fleet, which is used by the Code Compliance Department.
One of the things that occurred during the COVID-19, as she mentioned, important components to the infrastructure. In the greater country, there was a shortage of production when everything was shut down. Case in point, we wanted a new washer and dryer. We went to a great place, paid for it. It took 2.5 months to arrive because there was a backlog because the manufacturers had to shut down for COVID-19, and that's impacted a lot of things. I think we're getting better now, but that was the problem. Thank you, Maddie. Okay, so there's no significant change in budget here. There are 4 people in this operation. The manager, Maddie Bezerto, the executive office associate, a business operations specialist, and a part-time receptionist for 4 FTEs. If you look on page 69, you'll see that there are $110,000 that's postage for the whole city, and as a large number here at the bottom of 69, $1,057,000. That includes the INET upgrades and construction of fiber optics, which we pay for with our franchise fees that we collect. Any questions from the body for Ms. Pizzurto?
Yes, sir. Couple quick questions, if I may. The first is around our energy efficiency programs. Can you guys confirm that we're not doing anything with our street lights at the moment?
No, we're not currently. However, BG&E has begun to make a transfer. So as you know, a lot of our streetlights belong to BG&E. And so many of those have already begun. So approximately 200 BG&E lights have begun to be converted to LED.
Now,
One of the problems that exists is that I think is that because we've been approached by contractors who wanted to acquire our streetlights, and we have 6,000 of those things out there, and then upgrade them to LED, and then pay for itself with the savings. The problem is, from a financial perspective, we get a flat rate from BG&E, so if we change them all out, that won't affect our rate, so.
now that tariff, is there, the tariff rate that we have, is there, Maddie, are you aware of a process for effecting a different tariff? Is that through the Public Utilities Commission, or is that a legislative body? Is that like a state legislature issue?
That's through the Maryland Public Commission,
Okay.
Public Service Commission, yeah.
That may be something that we ought to put on the docket for our, some of our lobbying team, perhaps in the future. Because I think it would be nice to be able to move over to those. However, if we're still paying the same rate, that doesn't make fiscal sense. Thank you for that. Second thing is car charging stations. Thank you. I look forward to being the early user, if not the first. Once they're turned on, I'll roll in and plug in and give you a live test for that. So that's really good news.
It'll be a great photo op there.
There you go. And the other thing, could you take a look at exploring EV charging access for employees? I don't know if there's a value add to that in our circumstance, but maybe, I know we've got EV vehicles that need to be charged, so we have a dedicated space for them. I don't know if there may be some other alternatives, not sure if it's feasible, but if you could take a look into what that might look like for employees. I don't know how many current employees, or I don't know how many employees currently make use of electric vehicles, but that might be an incentive. And then finally, I'd like to extend a thanks to you and your organization as well. You've been a great help as I've struggled with utilities. For those that don't know, whenever we have a problem, we call on Maddie for outreach to a lot of these organizations, and she's helped a lot of our constituents with problems, including, I know, one case with a utility that just smelled like a lot of gas coming out, and they didn't take too much interest in responding, and you guys were able to move the needle on that, so thank you. So very much appreciate your efforts.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to jump in and second Councilmember Wolfley's comments. For those who don't know, Maddie used to bang down our door at City Hall on behalf of the community. And one of the smartest things Al ever did was put her on payroll. So now she goes and bangs on other people's doors on our behalf, and has been able to solve a lot of tricky problems for us over the years. And just wanted to express my gratitude for all her continued work.
Thank you.
Those kudos go around because I know I've had to call Maddie myself as well. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Okay then. Well, if there are no other questions or accolades for business operations, we'll proceed with the city clerk's office. Thank you, Maddie. All right. The city clerk's office provides support services and assistance to the city council and the city manager. This office, is in conjunction with Board of Elections, is responsible for and making arrangements for the conduct of administration, preparation, and operation of the city's elections, as well as the update of and maintenance of the voter registration rolls. Additionally, this office maintains and updates city codes, makes arrangements and preparations for city council meetings, including setting up council agendas, taking notes, transcribing minutes. The city clerk's office maintains official records and documents for the city, answers inquiries about outside agencies, citizens, governmental bodies on behalf of the city. This office also arranges interviews for the committee applicants with the city hall, with city council, preparing and maintaining city council calendars, hearing date schedules, city committee roster, as well as financial disclosure and conflict of interest data. The city clerk office is responsible for countersigning official documents. Maintaining a city office is also responsible for, city seal, maintaining city seal, setting up meetings with city council, assisting city staff, and researching projects, as well as gathering material for council packages and performing other tasks as needed. In the city management business, the city clerk is the primary direct support to the city council for customer service, caring and feeding, and all other things that they might need. So the objective for 2021A was to work with the planning department staff in reviewing and balancing the population of the city's 4 districts by January 31st, 2021. This objective was complete. Comparing the numbers with the reports received from the American Community Survey, the information provided is accurate as of December 31, 2019. Work with the city ID department to begin using Agenda Center software from Civic Plus for creation and agenda packets, all electronically. This objective is 70% complete. A quote was received by the vendor, Civic Plus, for a new module, Civic Clerk, that provides a more effective paperless agenda. And I believe that software action is in the IT budget. So as I mentioned before, COVID-19 didn't have a whole lot of impact on the performance indicators for city clerk's office, since we all kept on going. The objectives for 2022, work with the committee staff liaisons to ensure they are posting committee meetings and agendas as required, and following procedures for meeting minutes to be completed by June 30, 2022. Update the city records retention policy with city departments and Maryland State Archives. Create 2 additional record retention policies. Information Technology and Police Department to be completed by June 30, 2022. Go through all paper and electronic records to maintain, transfer, or destroy records in accordance with retention policy currently adopted, to be completed by June 30, 2022. Those are the objectives for the city clerk. There are 2 full-time employees there at the city clerk, and the administrative assistant, that was a new position but sorely needed to deal with the volume of work that comes her way. The 2 persons, $153,000 for salary and wages, and $42,100 for benefits. And the next largest expense would be travel associated with the Maryland Clerks Association meetings, annual international clerks meetings, and Clerks Academy, and other organizations that we use to keep our clerk current and professionally prepared. Any questions for me or the clerk?
Just a comment of thank you to the city clerk and the office.
Well,
You're welcome.
She gets the award, the marathon speaking award.
Yeah.
She gets paid by the word.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Wilda. I know sometimes it's hard working with me, but thank you for being patient.
Hey,
You're
what about
so
the rest of us? We got to work with you too.
Hilda, love you dearly. You're much appreciated.
Thank you.
Well, we have a great team
No,
in
thank
the
you.
clerk's office, and so they're gonna be even better than they were before with the addition. So the next division would be economic development, and Mr. King is positioned to my left. I commented when we were reviewing this that one-man operations got 5 pages of objectives. My goodness, we have to make sure we don't overwork him here. For the purposes of our people out in Bowie television, I'll read the description. The mission of the Economic Development Office is to increase the employment in non-residential tax base of the city through business retention, expansion, and attraction, tourism promotion, community development, redevelopment, and revitalization, and other business technical assistance. This office serves as a liaison to the business community and to the City Economic Development Committee and supports the local delivery of business assistance programs to various chambers of commerce, regional economic development entities, state offices and departments, and other agencies for economic and community development matters. This office is responsible for the implementation of the economic development strategies adopted in 2020 and by the City Council. Now, I'm not going to go through all their objectives because most of Mr. King's objectives are ongoing events. But there are some things that we had some success with. Like if you look at on page 74, continue to provide city oversight and coordination with small business growth and assistance programs. The city provides oversight to the Bowie Bick Innovation Center. As you know, Bowie Bick is a boon to the city and also is helping businesses recover from, along with the Chamber of Commerce, from the negative effects of COVID-19. Mr. King is the foundation and staff foundation for the Economic Development Committee. And he is their liaison, provides a great deal of support while those great citizens who are volunteers help develop impacts and strategies for the city. I will say this about this department: he's very busy. Most of his 22 objectives are a continuation of 21. On 2022, though, I'd like to note, page 75, that I intend to withdraw the objective number 1 and await the results of the strategic strategy results before taking that on. We want to, the strategy may not call for this, or may want something more robust or something different. So considering Mr. King has obviously a lot of other things to do, we'll wait till we get the results from the consultant on the strategy, and then if this is still appropriate, we'll include it in the next year's budget. There are no significant budget changes here. I will say this, that currently Mr. King is at 120% of capacity. There's absolutely no way we can add anything else to him without giving him another person to do it, a competent person. So, and since he is a one-man guy, the salary and fringes there on page 76. Contractual services are at $80,000. There's $260,000 listed in professional services. This is hosting of brokers or prospective events, advertising, graphic design agency, support services. Also includes the city's contribution to the Bowie Bick Innovation Center, which is 105, was that 155? 155. And the procurement of technical assistance center and the Maryland Women's Business Center, and service fees for maintenance of operation of the city's revolving loan, which you all are familiar with. And on page 77, you'll see we annotated the revolving loan amount, which is $100,000 for this year. We are, Mr. King and I are happy to answer any questions or that you all might have.
City Manager. Hey, thank you for that. City Manager, I really would like to ask, I do believe we do need more assistance in our economic development, and I was thinking of, at what point do you believe we should be looking at adding an additional body, an additional person to assist in our economic development? You just talked about taking off one item. Do you think it's good to wait until after we get that strategic analysis of where we go? Because it's obvious our businesses in the city as a whole, as we grow, as we try to do economic development and draw those amenities and those stores and retailers that we want, that's beyond the scope of one individual. And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on where we are on looking at adding an additional body
Well, I think,
to our economic development team.
I agree, Mr. Mayor, that it would be my recommendation to wait until we get the results of this strategy. And if it requires and you all support a heavier workload for this division, then I would, request that person at that time, and then amend the budget to move on, if you all so inclined. But I would wait until we get this situation.
Understood. I agree. I just wanted. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. We're synchronized on that one. Okay. So, any questions by any other council members for Mr. King? He can't wait to answer them. I want you to know that. All right.
Thank you. Quick question for you. First of all, thanks for all the good work you do for us. The quick question I had for you was on the hotels that I noted that you had some increased email relationship building with hotel operators here in the city. Have you learned how they're faring in COVID times in terms of occupancy?
I have no current occupancy data. I do keep in touch with them, as they are a group whose contacts I have. They experienced a loss of occupancy in the spring and summer of last year. They've begun to see a return to normal starting in the fall and as we've gone into this year. We don't have any data from them. I have recently acquired a new data source, which I'm learning to use to see if we can report out some useful information about our hotels. And a question you didn't ask, but I want to focus on hotels with the time I've got available, in part because we do get a direct revenue stream from them. It's not large compared to what the county gets from their hotel base, but it is enough money that it's tax dollars our residents aren't paying that we can use. So we want to keep our hotels healthy.
Yeah, I know that there's been some discussion about additional hotels either at South Lake or across the way from the Walmart at, help me, what's that development?
That'd be Mill Branch.
Mill Branch, thank you. Do you think, based on what we've seen so far, that the occupancy rates would support those?
Near term, no. We've got probably 5 hotel locations within the city that are unbuilt. We have the 2 Marriott Mark brands that would be companions to the Courtyard up at Melford. There's one, maybe 2 pads possible at Mill Branch, and there's 1, maybe 2 pads possible at South Lake. The demand right now is not there, and the industry doesn't yet have a target for when they expect markets like Bowie to resume construction.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. King? Well, if really, I wish you wouldn't let him off the hook this easy, but if there's nothing else, we'll proceed to emergency management.
I don't know, are there any new restaurants coming to town?
Yes, but I can't tell you what they are. I can tell you that one will be in the southernmost district in an existing retail location. I can also report that there has been ongoing interest in the vacant Chili's and On the Border properties. None has resulted in a deal. Many of those expressions of interest are from fast food restaurants, some of which are the leaders in their particular market segment. So there is interest. There is activity in the retail sector. How soon we'll see that, kind of hard to say, though.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I jump in real quick if Mr. Wolfley's concluded?
Please go right ahead, Councilman.
Sorry, Mr. Wolfley, you were done, right?
Yes, you bet. Thanks.
Thank you. Didn't want to cut you off. Along that train of thought, Mr. John Henry King, one of the things that I certainly am hearing more in the last 4 years is interest from residents, in what can be done to better position ourselves to attract higher end restaurants in particular. We're kind of in an awkward spot because this is an area where we obviously have very limited control. Most businesses kind of know exactly who their clients are and make decisions pretty strategically about where to set up. But I'm curious as to any thoughts you may have now or in the near future about what we could be doing as a city to better position ourselves for some of these higher end, less fast foody restaurants, and what tools may exist out there that we are not currently leveraging.
Restaurant site locators are a relatively sophisticated bunch. They've got models of demographics that are developed from their successful locations. They use those models to seek sites. Many of the restaurants that are named by our residents as ones they'd like to see here have profiles that seek demographics that Bowie does not offer. And by that I generally mean they're looking for pockets of higher income than we have, which is a bit perplexing because we are certainly an upper middle income community. We have lots of dollars in good times to spend for restaurants. The second thing is many of the restaurant concepts still require a greater daytime density than we are able to offer. Hence, they get attracted to these the more densely developed areas around transit stations or those retail, residential, office destinations that, again, we don't have lots of here in Bowie. I do know that our retail leasing folks are in repeated talks with the representatives of many of the chains that our residents name as wanting most often. But to date, that has not resulted in any of them actually coming and signing a lease for our locations. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. Is there anything, oftentimes there are government-imposed barriers that stand in the way of businesses, particularly, those with very thin profit margins. Is there anything we or the county could be discussing about removing potentially unnecessary barriers that are, dissuading people from opening more businesses of these variety in our area?
The number one obstacle to a business locating in Bowie or Prince George's County is the length of time the permit review process takes. I can assure you that there is not a lengthy permit review process here at City Hall, which means it's someplace else. And there are two places at the county it could be, but there are complaints frequently that it takes too blank long. The second thing is many restaurants are put off by the liquor licensing process. That has improved greatly over the last 5 years or so. But Prince George's County has a reputation in the hospitality industry as having one of the more difficult places to get a license for the kinds of alcohol sales that a higher end restaurant chain expects to have as part of their offering.
Yeah, I know these are both items that have come up before and have been a headache for a lot of different businesses. Um, let's make a note, staff, to really, and I don't know if this is something that should belong in the realm of our lobbyists, but this is something that I think we've heard about for enough years now, and affects enough different tax-paying businesses that we ought to really make it a better priority, working with PGCMA and MML as we can to kind of just see if we can make a bit more of a concerted push with the county on that front when it comes to permitting in particular, and liquor laws as another issue. I know that one's often very fraught. But I appreciate your input, Mr. John Henry King.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right then. We'll move to emergency management.
Mr. Mayor, I just had one last question for John Henry King. It's just a follow-up on what he just mentioned to Councilman Esteve.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. John Henry, great insight. Thanks for sharing that. I know last year when we were, and this is kind of probably a question more for our city manager. I know last year when we were talking about the budget and when we went through communications, we had talked about an exercise like around like branding for the city of Bowie and like just kind of like not necessarily like telling the story of the city and the types of demographics or the audience that we were looking to attract in the city. So my question is, I think we did settle on putting that in the budget last year. I just forgot what it's called. I don't have that one in front of me. But my question is you made the first point of the median household income not being, I guess you would say, considered enough for certain restaurateurs, which I find interesting because I think Bowie sitting at like kind of like a kind of 110 mark is relatively high for a lot of other cities that are in the Prince George's County area that do have these types of restaurants that we're trying to attract. So I find that interesting. But the second point that I also found appealing that I thought was a really good point that you made, you talked about the daytime traffic and there not being enough daytime traffic. And when I think about the demographic of the people that live in the city of Bowie, a lot of people are either retired or they're also leaving the city to go to either whether that's Washington, D.C. or Virginia to go to work during the day and then they come back at night. So based off of what we put in communications last year to really figure out like what's the story, what demographic is the city appealing to, what is the city going to become, are you working with UNA at all to really understand how we can work on that narrative to also like not necessarily attract a certain demographic, but also figure out what the vision is over the next couple of years of the types of people that we are attracting to the city to potentially increase that foot traffic that's here during the day? Because I think that kind of goes into us not having a ton of businesses that are housed in Bowie. And when I say businesses, I mean large business like a Novolon that's bringing their employees here that are generating foot traffic, whether that's for the Bowie Town Center or other establishments in the city of Bowie. So how do you think about that, or how are we working on that, and how does that fit into what we put in last year with communications with UNA's budget? I'd just love to understand a little bit more there.
Yeah, I believe the communications budget does have funding for a branding effort. I've talked with Una Cooper several times on it, and so we are coordinated in that, and I look forward to its results. Bowie's ability to attract restaurants does not depend on branding. Restaurants aren't looking for a clever brand or a brand of a location. They are looking for the demographics.
Hold on, John, just 1 second. Let me just clarify. When I talk about branding, I'm talking about attracting a demographic. I'm not talking about a restaurateur. So when you talk about branding for a city and you have different types of developments or establishments that are coming up in a city, you're attracting certain people to buy those houses to move to that city. So last year, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but Una can share more insight. We did have a discussion around the brand of the city in terms of the demographic that we are appealing to as a city, which directly correlates to your second point and your first point, because in your first point, you talked about the actual median income not being enough. The second point that you mentioned was the density and foot traffic. And so that branding of attracting a demographic and figuring out what the city will become, if this is an aging community, a retiring community, that directly correlates to foot traffic and density, which attracts your restaurateur. So that's the point that I was making, and I want to clarify just so we understand that we're on the same page.
Well, I think this might exceed John Henry's scope. We did discuss in the Communications Division's presentation that there'll be an RFP going out for a branding consultant within the next 3 weeks. It's our intent to work with the branding consultant next year. If you look at page 63 of your book there, and where we will train staff on a new and develop the new style, and of course it's going to include all of our senior leaders in their divisions, including economic development, as we work on the brand. You know, there's some hard economics about how you attract or whether you can attract people, and but ultimately in this free enterprise system, it's up to them. We can recruit and attract, but you know, when they do their market studies, they got to be able to make money. So that's what's going on. And he's right about the permitting process that exists. I've spoke with several business persons, and they went to other counties because it was easier to get going and get through the permit process, get a liquor license, and that's something maybe we certainly can have our lobbyists work toward, see if we can't mitigate that somehow or help mitigate that. And as a person who got the new ISO permit process accomplished before that process was voted down, it was one of the hardest things I'd ever done in my life, was to get all the perfect permits needed. So we have to be business friendly, both us and everybody involved, which is the point. Thank you.
Thanks,
Mr.
Mr.
City
City
Manager.
Manager. That's very helpful.
If I could,
Sorry, Una, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to add a little about the branding. I think what we're looking for are probably 4 different aspects to this whole branding exercise. Who are we now? What's our story? What makes us unique? And then sort of aspirational, what would we like to see ourselves as? And can we kind of, not just because you say it doesn't make it happen, but, you know, have some goals toward that. Then some tourism. We have some things to attract people. And then the 4th would be an economic development component. And John and I work very closely together, and we've had several conversations about branding, and we will continue. So we are thinking about those kind of things, definitely.
Thank you so much, Una. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'll proceed with emergency management. Emergency management,
Yes.
one of my, I was credited for a good hire, and I think my other good hire was to get us a good emergency management. I like to say that I had foresight and I knew something terrible was coming, but I didn't. But the fact that our emergency management operation was primed and ready, we were able to fight through and survive this COVID-19 scourge in a much better situation. But our emergency management office plans, organizes, and directs the emergency management programs for the city and coordinates planning, organization, execution of local emergency management activities. This office represents the community on all emergency management matters and coordinates activities with other local, state, federal, nonprofit, and other private agencies. It oversees the development and maintenance of the annual review of the city's emergency operations plan, which we developed 3 years ago, I believe. In addition, the office established, maintains, and runs the city's EOC, which has been was operated significantly at the beginning of the COVID-19, and we made a great transition to a virtual EOC under the command and control of Mr. Cornwell and Stephanie Robinson. Additionally, the Emergency Management Office provides a variety of emergency preparedness, emergency response training, staff. A great number of our people are NIMS qualified, and of course, classes in CPR and working with infectious disease control and incident management. Also, he was assigned the mission of facilitating a security work group. As soon as this COVID-19 relaxes and we begin to open the city facilities, we're going to increase our security because of the terrible things that are going on where we just have to do it. The city also provides an ongoing support to the Bowie Volunteer Fire Department to assist and deliver their services to the Bowie community. The emergency manager serves as the liaison between the city, between the department and the city management to ensure that both entities have common goals. Objective for 21 was to develop a continuity operations plan for all departments to ensure essential city functions are maintained during disasters and emergencies. The office developed a basic plan for the continuity of operations plan. They then assisted with the coordination of the departments for their own coup plans, and those plans are being currently reviewed by the city attorney for legal propriety. B was to train the emergency operations staff and operation of the EOC. COVID limited opportunity to conduct the training. However, web EOC was conducted in a just-in-time mode of the EOC representatives during COVID-19. And of course, no better training than to actually do it. And we had our EOC operating at full steam and really helping us control the changes that we went through between May of last year and June before we settled down here. Also, as they were assigned to enhance the employee preparedness, Public Safety Committee and Green Team acknowledged by conducting quarterly training programs on topics such as CPR, infectious disease control, opioid overdoses, and more. And of course, the Office of Emergency Management conducted 4 virtual meetings, and several COVID updates were presented to the City Council, 2 town hall meetings, and so they've been really busy accomplishing that task. Evaluate the location of the automatic external defibrillators, and 12 new AEDs were displaced and service replacement of those defibrillators that were there. 1 additional AED will be placed in the service of the public and police entrance, just in case. Also, they conduct emergency operations related to functional tabletop exercises. COVID-19 prevented us from doing this. However, we did conduct a winter weather preparation seminar, which was significant because we had a lot of snow and ice, and more so than I expected this year, and than anybody did. Finally, 2021, they were going to work with the security consultant. I mentioned that before. They identified physical gaps in physical and technological security for the city. And when COVID-19 prevented us from getting into that full steam, but we intend to pick it up next year as soon as we get we're able to open up. In 2022, we're going to develop an emergency action plans for each city-owned facility, train emergency operations center staffs on the operations of the EOC, enhance employee preparedness, Public Safety Committee, Green Team, by conducting quarterly training programs to include topics, as I mentioned before, CPR, infectious disease control, opioid overdoses, and emergency preparedness. Evaluate the location for the AEDs, that's a repeat of that last objective. Conduct a emergency response related functional or tabletop exercises by May of next year. And of course, we're going to work with the Fiscal security consultant to, harden our city facility buildings against active shooters and such things like that. And coordinate the COVID response for the city to include vaccinations and other prescribed safety guidelines. Among other things, a major accomplishment of this division during 2021 was the high-level coordination with the governor's office and Safeway and everybody to get a vaccination center in the city of Bowie under our command and control for our residents who wanted it. And so that was a significant service delivery by the emergency management operation. Salaries and wages, $171,600. $60,000 in fringe. There is a, down on page 181, you'll see there, $167,000. Part of that goes to the Bowie Volunteer Fire Department, and others were equipment replacement, vehicle insurance for us. So that concludes our discussion of emergency management, and that will conclude the city manager's department. And we will, if anybody's got any questions or comments for me and Mr. Cornwell, he's out there in Cyberland ready to help answer those questions.
Any questions from City Council?
All right, I do want to just extend, it's getting to be a bad habit here to be so appreciative. You want to be seen as the big heavy guy. But no, I do want to say thank you. COVID has been obviously completely unexpected occurrence, and one which the city staff has risen to the levels necessary to meet the requirements. And it's just been commendable everywhere, and nowhere is that more evident than the emergency response group. So thank you very much for all the efforts for your offices there.
Well,
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say this. Well, somebody talk? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, City Manager, go ahead. I'll speak after you. Go ahead.
What I wanted to say was, a year ago, we all sat here and with the plan that Mr. Cornwell and his team and I and Daniel and I come up with to manage this pandemic. And then, as soon as we got that plan, everything started to change. Of course, and for several months things got worse. But the central method of survival for us on the staff and delivering services was the EOC. And the fact that the fact that Todd Peterson and his IT team were able to get us decisively involved with teams and to use technology to communicate everything from buying a grapple hook truck to pick up furniture that we thought was contaminated to, closing the kitchen and shutting down the city and operating at a level. So we're very fortunate, and a lot of decisions and a lot of consulting going on, but we were able to get it done. And Lee and his team led the way. Thank you, sir.
And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the citizens, our community as well, to the entire team, because we know it was a team effort. But I have to say, with the emergency management, I think the Lieutenant Governor coming out last week and talking about what a model it was for the vaccination site at the senior center, and knowing that the emergency management team, along with the entire staff and all those who were a part of that, the volunteers and everyone, just to see how smoothly it flowed, but more importantly, how it was taking care of our residents. And as the Lieutenant Governor pointed out, how efficiently it was being done. I just want to say kudos and thank you again for making that happen. And I don't think we can say enough, having got through this point, to this point in this pandemic, which we know isn't over yet. But we got through it largely because, and I give the entire city staff, all of you, kudos for particularly emergency management. And again, on behalf of all of us, not just the council, but the citizens as well. Thank you so very much, because we also know there were some very long hours in there as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to point out to those listening that Mayor Adams was the person who got us connected with the governor's office so we could get the necessary clout to make this happen. So the next department will be our beloved police department. Chief Neskes is sitting to my left, and I'll start, and we'll see if we can't get through this. The police department protects the lives and property of citizens and businesses while focusing on proactive community engagement, trust building, and responsiveness. Duties include patrol, responding to calls for service, identifying and apprehending suspected criminals, safety, traffic safety enforcement, along with community service and events. The department continues to expand its responsibilities as dictated by community needs. The Communications Center continues to evolve and improve services for residents and improve interoperability between city departments. The department has received certification on accreditation of law enforcement agency CALEA on November 13, 2020. Let me stop there. That was a very significant event. In other cities that I've worked, I've seen police departments work for years and not make that accreditation. But you have to commit to it and all the assets and the people. So that was a significant, very, very significantly outstanding accomplishment. The department currently has a traffic unit, investigative unit, and a community services unit, which includes the school resource officer. The department will continue to work in partnership with Prince George's County Police Department. This partnership includes sharing training opportunities, joint initiatives, and information sharing. Prince George's County Police Department continues to provide follow-up investigation service to the city of Bowie for all major crimes, including but not limited to commercial robberies, rape, murder, as well as other technical evidence in the areas of drug analysis, fingerprint identification, special operations such as helicopter units, hostage barricade officers, and canine. And it's essential that's essential positive relationship with the Prince George's County Police that does great and greatly improves the quality of life for our residents. In 2021, the police department sought to reduce the overall property crime by 10% with a focus on theft from auto through a broad and varied educational campaign and enforcement strategies. The results will be measured in the calendar year 2020 to 2021. That objective is complete. B, assume investigative responsibility for the commercial robberies by June 30, 2021. 7% pending the completion. There's some coordination required with Prince George's County and the new chief of police, but we're prepared to take that over. C, implement the drone program to assist missing persons, suspect searches, crash investigations, and other city-related duties. And that objective is complete, and I've seen the drone in action personally. The convert an existing SUV with an equipped tactical vehicle for 24-hour patrol used to ensure tactical response equipment is readily available, and that objective was completed on time also. Once again, the performance and workload indicators went up a little bit for the police department in some areas, but that was expected because the protection of the citizens couldn't stop for COVID-19. And the police department, during the shutdown, of course, were essential employees, and they provided seamless protection, even though everybody else was able to stay at home except the solid waste guys, of course. The objective for fiscal year 2022, create a series of informational videos explaining various police procedures and processes to show how a ticket is adjudicated, how a complaint is handled by June 30th. We have an excellent video production capability here, and I expect that'll be easy to maintain and to accomplish. Implement an active bystandership for law enforcement, able to all police department personnel, which is taught in the partnership with Georgetown University. This program is designed to prevent misconduct, increase internal accountability, and improve officer safety and promote health and wellness. And they intend to complete this by June of next year. Assume investigative responsibility for the police, Prince George's County, from Prince George's County for commercial and residential robberies, and that's to be completed next year. We have the capacity to do that ourselves, but we have to get them to relinquish that authority. The significant budget changes is elimination of police cadet positions. We just did not could not make that work, and so every now and then you get to reduce the budget, and that's the case there. There are 86 persons in our police department. I think 67 are sworn or designated to be sworn, correct, Chief? Yes. All right. And of course, the police department, just for some basic interesting information, the police department's overall proposed budget is $13,964,400, which is a significant part of our $60 million budget. $8,292,000 for 300 for salary and wages, $4 million for fringe benefits, and that includes employee compensation and the retirement and all of that. The contractual services 105 for automobile liability and police liability. $173,000 for preventive maintenance and repairs on police vehicles, and $124,000 on computer, telephones, and such. And $82,000 for weapons and ammunition and training associated with that. Any questions to either myself or Chief Nesky about this budget?
First and foremost, I'm just going to get it out the way and say thank you to Chief and to all those involved in getting that clear accreditation. It gives us an opportunity to talk to and speak to what a police force should and could look like, and how they should and can perform. So having said that, I just want to say thank you for that. I know it was a lot of work put into that, and it also is an example for so many other police departments, particularly in our area, of what it can and should look like. So I just want to say thanks to all involved, and to the chief, our deputy chief, and to all the rank and file. We thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, quick questions. I certainly echo the mayor's comments, and thank you for your good efforts over the last year plus. I want to ask you something, just a quick follow-up on something near and dear to my heart, the uptake rate on our camera program in terms of the video cameras at residences and the support we're providing for that. How's that looking, and what's it look like for the future?
We are about maybe around 50% through the funds for this fiscal year. We did allocate $10,000 for next year to continue the program. I think $10,000 will be more than enough given the initial influx of applications. $10,000 should get us through the next year pretty easily.
Okay, great. I thank you for having pursued that over the time it's taken to get there. So
it's been a journey. Yes.
It has been, but I appreciate your persistence in getting there, and I think it's a good service to the community, and I think it's beneficial to the force as well. So thank you.
Sure.
All right. I'd like to say one thing, if I could.
I'm sorry. I do have a follow-up question. The FTE rates, I see a drop on the FTE rates. Is that in absolute numbers, or is that in expected, Phil?
Those were the two cadets that we dropped. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
I will say one thing about policing. I had occasion to be a senior leader with police in Tacoma Park, Albany, Georgia, and here. And when I was at College Park, I worked with Prince George's County a lot because we didn't have our own police. But in Georgia, we had 220 sworn officers, and we had marshals, and our code enforcement persons were post-certified and who carried weapons. Just the way it's got to be in the Deep South. I'm just telling you, yeah. The code guys need to be cops. But I'll say one thing. This police department has been the most proficient police department at engaging the residents that I've seen. And by their efforts, by the myriad of events they have with residents, the bike rides, shot with a cop, in the chief chat for, these are the sort of things that connect the residents with the police department and causes them to understand and believe that these are their police officers, not just the police.
Yes.
And that's what's significant here. And I was, as a city manager coming in 16, I was pleasantly surprised to see that that this police department was that connected with its residents. So, any other questions of Mr. Chief Neske or myself about Bowie PD?
I would, City Manager, this is Chief. Could you just give me a real brief update on your thoughts on the crime lab?
Sure.
Its progress in this edition. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm going to take a stab at about 80% done. We're waiting on some equipment. She is finishing up some SOPs and procedures. She kind of hit the ground running. She already had a good idea of what she wanted to do and how she wanted to do it. So she is finishing up some final touches. She has been out processing some crime scenes. She's really digging in and getting things done, and looking at continuing training for our sworn evidence techs as well. So we're shaping up pretty well. I'm very happy the way things are going. And once I have a meeting with the new chief from Prince George's County in June, we can talk about starting that switch over as soon as we're all set on both sides. So we're very excited about it.
Good. Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in real quick to echo some of the mayor's earlier comments, and really thank Chief Neske and Deputy Chief and their whole team for, doing everything they can to be an example of what we'd like to see in policing at a time when I think people want to see that. The public outreach continues to be fantastic. The responsiveness to us and to residents continues to be great. And you guys have made such tremendous strides in attaining so many of your goals in recent years. We're very grateful for your continued work, and I just wanted to add my voice to that.
Thank you.
Well, if there aren't any other questions or comments for the police department, we'll move to page 89 and take on the finance department. Thank you, Chief. So, finance department functions to provide financial information needed for policy and administrative decisions. The financial information is used to assess the existing financial position of the city as a whole or of a particular fund, program, or department. The second thing they do is to forecast the financial position over a given future time. Third, they monitor and control the flows of revenues and expenditures so as to maintain accountability for funds and to operate the city within legal and budgetary constraints. In 2021, the one objective was to maintain a city certificate of achievement for financial reporting and distinguished budget presentation. That was done. We received the distinguished budget presentation for 2021 adopted budget, and the city has received that award in the last 26 consecutive years, 1996 to 2021. Coordinate the annual budget. Of course, we're in the middle of that right now, and the finance department has certainly kept me and our department directors on track as we assess their needs, put that into a proposed budget, balance it all up, and present it to you all now. Their objectives for 2022 are to once again sustain and maintain the certificate of achievement in financial reporting and distinguished budget presentation award, and once again, their big mission, just like it is yours, to review and approve, is to get it ready for you. And Mr. Matthews and his team have been extraordinarily proficient at that, and since I arrived, for sure. There are 11.8 full-time employees. There is one significant budget change. We propose to add a contract specialist, a full-time employee, X-ray 118, at the cost of $103,800. And the reason why, and I intend to assign the management of that particular person to Mr. Matthews and his team. That person will be a contract specialist who will be tasked to help us as our contracting has become more complicated, especially when we have to, if it comes to the point where we have to let a contract and physically supervise not just the delivery of the service, but how that person pays their people, what they offer their people in benefits. We have nobody to take that mission on now, and in order to do that with any degree of effectiveness, we need another person, and I'd rather not try to, control a consultant with another consultant. That just would not work out for us. But, so that's one change there. And I mentioned, so $934,000, $934,900 in salaries, $264,800 in fringe benefits, professional services, $64,900, armored car services, bank fees, temporaries and actuaries, a small amount for travel and training, and then materials and supplies that our finance people need to do their job. Mr. Matthews is standing by. Mr. Matthews is standing by to answer any questions, and so am I. If you all have any questions of the finance regarding the finance department's budget.
If I could, I would just like to make a comment, City Manager, and to Mr. Matthews. Number one, thank you so very much. It's obvious by the accolades that we received from your fine work on our reporting over the years and how we handle our budget. But number two is, I think it's a very needed position, that contracts person. I think that will alleviate a lot of concerns, not only for staff of having to come in and do a lot of analysis of all the procurements and all those things, but also, as you say, someone who can be very focused and very knowledgeable about contracts and some of the requirements we may have coming down the line and managing those. So again, thank you so very much, Brian and your team, for all you do, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I will let them know.
Yes, we have an outstanding staff there in finance. They have me signing my life away regularly as we approve check requests and purchase orders. If there are no other questions for Mr. Matthews, what we'll do now, Mr. Mayor, is have him take us through the non-departmental component of the budget, which starts on page 151. Byron?
Thank you,
Sounds
City
good.
Manager.
Take it away.
This is Byron Matthews, the Finance Director for the City of Bowie. I'm going to take you through the non-departmental section of the general fund. This budget section provides for expenditures which are not directly or exclusively associated with specific activities or programs. They include debt service, counseling, comprehensive insurance coverages, allowances for contingencies, and transfers to other funds. The expenditures are listed as we have proposed them for FY22. The biggest decline there is the transfer. We're only transferring less than $200,000 to the capital projects fund for this year. The other part of that transfer is $202.3 million for the equipment acquisition fund. The debt service shows what will be due in FY22 on our public improvement bonds of 2009. Those bonds are the bonds that financed City Hall. Those bonds were refunded in 2015 to obtain lower interest rates. So there was savings in doing this refunding that the city was able to capitalize on. And our public improvement bonds of 2019 which was originally established to fund the ice arena, has now been allocated to fund our future capital projects. We have paying and physical agent fees. Those fees are charges to administer the debt service. Next category is the insurance. That handles our comprehensive insurance, our liability, our property and damage expenditures. Our professional service amounts to consulting fees for insurance, employee benefits, and other consulting activities. On page 152, other charges, the city has a educational reimbursement program for city employees where the city pays 2/3 reimbursement on approved educational expenses. We have allocated $30,000 for that. Mr. Mayor, this will delve into your original question to the city manager about incentive awards across the board. The city has allocated $70,000 for a set of awards for employee suggestions and achievements. And we have another $300,000 that we use for reserved for contingencies to handle any unforeseen expenditures along the way. Our next category is a reserve for personnel adjustments. This is an allowance for performance awards and other personnel adjustments that are needed during the hiring phases. As I mentioned before, the next section is the transfers to other funds. The Capital Projects Fund, the $235,400 was earmarked for the transfer to capital projects for the special taxing districts. The next part of that transfer, the $2.3 million, is for our allocation to the Equipment Acquisition Fund. That allows us to stabilize our tax rate by putting away a designated amount each year so that when it's time to purchase new equipment, we're not faced with a big surge in the expenditure request. On page 153 is just another summary of our debt service. This tells you how much is remaining on each of the debts that the city holds in its general fund. As you can see, the 2009 first portion of that bond in FY22 will be paid off, and we'll be dealing with the refunding portion of that bond, which will still have $7.5 million left to pay. On page 154 is a sheet for our public improvement bonds that we're using to finance now our capital projects. So we have an outstanding balance of $35.7 million that will be paid out in 2050. Mr. Mayor and Council, that is the conclusion of the non-departmental section and our debt service section. I'd be willing to answer any questions if there's any.
Well, I would just like to make a comment, and you did answer it for me, Mr. Matthews, Byron, that we look like you've done a good job of positioning us if we have to do something when it comes to rewarding our talent and maintaining our talent pool here. So it looks like you've put the contingencies in there in place to be as competitive as we need to be. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions for Mr. Matthews?
Any other questions? Hearing none. City Manager?
Well, Mr. Mayor, that concludes our work for tonight. We've accomplished the City Manager's offices, Police Department, Finance Department, and Non-Departmental. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 3rd, and there'll be one budget-related item on that, which is the 2022 budget CIP and constant yield tax rate, which is a requirement for us to address this by law. And otherwise, there are 2 issues from South Lake on there. And then our next full-blown work session 5, is Monday, May the 10th.
Okay. Well, with that said, again, I'd like to say thank you to all of the city staff for being here tonight, and all of those who put in all the hard work on the budget. City manager, thank you so very much for the presentation tonight. And I want to thank everyone. I don't really think we need to, but would someone like to make a motion at this time that we close out our work session number 4?
So
Mayor,
moved.
move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none. Again, thank you everyone, to the citizens, but primarily to the staff, but also to the city council members for taking the time to do such important work as we have here. So appreciate you all. And please, everyone, remember, it's still a pandemic, and stay safe. And I look forward to seeing everyone again next Monday. Hey, thank you and have a good night.
Thanks.